ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयामदेवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तु नूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ओम शांति शांति शांति। Okay, let us chant the first khanda of the second chapter. Tadetat satyam yatha sudiptat pavakad.
तदेत सत्यं
दीप्तात पावकात्
Sudiptat pavakad.
सुदीप्तात् पावकात्
Visfulinga sahasrashaf prabhavante sarupaha.
विस्फुलिंगा सहस्रश प्रभवन्ते स्वरूपाः.
Everybody please, standing has to be by everybody. तथा अक्षराद् विविधा सौम्य भावाः
साक्षरात् विविधाः सूक्ष्मभावाः
प्रजायन्ते तत्र चैवापियन्ति
दैवापियन्ति
दिव्यो ह्यमूर्तः पुरुषः सभाभ्यन्तरो ह्यजः सबाह्यभ्यन्तरो ह्यजः अप्राणो ह्यमनः शुभ्रा ह्यक्षरात् परतः परः एतस्मात् जायते प्राणः मनः सर्वेन्द्रियाणि च खं वायुर्ज्योतिरापः पृथिवी विश्वस्य धारिणी अग्निर्मूर्धा चक्षुषीश्चन्द्रसूर्यो दिशश्रोत्रे वाग्वृताश्च वेदाः वायुः प्राणो हृदयं विश्वमस्य पद्भ्यां पृथिवी ह्येष सर्वभूतान्तरात्मा तस्मादग्निः समिद्धो यस्य सूर्यः सोमात् पर्जन्य ओषधयः पृथिव्याम् पुमान् रेतः सिञ्चति योषितायाम् बहवि प्रजाः पुरुषात् सम्प्रसूताः तस्मादृचः सामयजूंषि दीक्षाः
तस्माद् दृश्यश्च सामयजुषीषाः
यज्ञाश्च सर्वे कर्तवो दक्षिणाश्च
यज्ञाश्च सर्वे क्रतवो दक्षिणाश्च
संवत्सरश्च यजमानश्च लोकाः
संवत्सरश्च यजमानश्च लोकाः
सोमो यत्र पवते यत्र सूर्यः
सोमो यत्पवते यत्सूर्यः
तस्माद्देवा बहुधा सम्प्रसूताः
तस्मात् देवा बहुधा सम्प्रसूताः
साध्या मनुष्याः पशवो वयांसि
साध्या मनुष्याः पशवो वयांसि
प्राणापानो व्रीह्यबौ तपश्च
प्राणापानौ यवौ तपश्च
व्रीह्यवौ तपश्च
व्रीह्यवौ तपश्च
श्रद्धा सत्यं ब्रह्मचर्यं विधिश्च
श्रद्धा सत्यं ब्रह्मचर्यं विधिश्च
सप्त प्राणाः प्रभवन्ति तस्मात्
सप्त प्राणाः
प्रभवन्ति तस्मात्
सप्तार्चिषः समिद्धः सप्तहोमाः
सप्तार्चिषः सप्तहोमाः
सप्त इमे लोका येषु चरन्ति
सप्त इमे
लोका
चरन्ति
प्राणा गुहाशया निहिताः सप्त सप्त
प्राणागुहाशया निहिताः सप्त सप्त
अतः समुद्रा गिरयश्च सर्वे
अतः समुद्रादयश्च सर्वे
अस्मात् स्यन्दन्ते सिन्धवः सर्वरूपाः
अस्मात् स्यन्दन्ते सिन्धवः सर्वरूपाः
अस्मात् स्यन्दन्ते सिन्धवः सर्वरूपाः
अस्मात् स्यन्दन्ते सिन्धवः सर्वरूपाः
अतश्च सर्वा ओषधयो रसश्च
अतश्च सर्वा ओषधयो रसश्च
येनैष भूतैस्तिष्ठते ह्यन्तरात्मा
तिष्ठते ह्यन्तरात्मा
पुरुष एवेदं विश्वं कर्म
पुरुष एवेदं विश्वकर्म
तपो ब्रह्म परामृतम्
तपो ब्रह्म परामृतम्
एतद्यो वेद निहितं गुहायाम्
एतद्यो वेदनिहितं गुहायाम्
सो विद्या ग्रन्थिं विकरीतीह सौम्य
सो विद्या ग्रन्थिं विकीर्तिः सौम्य
इति द्वितीयमुण्डके प्रथमखण्डः
इति द्वितीयमुण्डके प्रथमखण्डः
Okay. So there is much progress to be made in regard to your pronunciation of the words, which of course means that you guys are not chanting it. So as Vedantic students, in fact, we are supposed to chant more of the Upanishads than of the Bhagavad Gita. So as you move towards Upanishads, I suggest that every day you do the chanting of the Upanishad which we are doing instead of the Bhagavad Gita, or in addition to the Bhagavad Gita, whichever. Okay, so let us see what it says. This is the fourth one, and in order to be able to get the best out of the teaching, I suggest that you you have a printout of the Upanishad, and the verse which we are discussing, you should have it in front of you. Okay, Agnir Murdha Chakshushi Chandra Suryo Deshaha Shrotre Vag Vivritash Cha Vedaha Vayuhu Prano Hridayam Vishwam Asya Padbhyam Prithvi Yesha. Yesha is he Esha Sarva Bhutantaratma. This is the fourth verse. So look at the words Agni, fire. Then here the word Agni, I'll explain later. It is, though the literal meaning is fire, it refers to the upper lokas. So Agni, then Murdha. Murdha is the head, our head. Chakshushi is the eyes. Chandra Suryau. So that's Dvitiya, that is the second case. So the second, the second then, so Chandra plus Surya. There are two things involved are there. Chandra and Surya. That's why Chandra Suryau. Then there is Deshaha. The Deshaha are the directions, the four quarters of the sky. Shrotra is the ears. Vak. So Vak Vivritascha has to be broken. Vak plus Vivritascha plus Vedaha. So Vak is speech. Vivritaha is the well-known Vedaha, or declare the Vedaha. Then Vayuhu is the wind. Pranaha is the breath. Hridayam is the heart. Vishvam Asya, of this universe. Padbhyam is from the feet. Prithvi is the earth. He Eshaha is indeed. This is indeed. Sarva Bhuta Antaratma, the inner self, Antaratma of Sarva Bhuta, of all beings. So the higher lokas are his head. The simple meaning, higher lokas are the head. The sun and the moon are the two eyes. The four quarters of the sky are the ears. The Vedas Vivrataha are his speech. The air is his breath. Vayu is the breath. Hridayam Vishwamasya, the universe, Asya Vishwam, Hridayam is his heart. And Padbhyam Prithivihi, so the earth originated from his feet. Padbhyam means from the feet. And he Esha Sarva Bhuta Antaratma. He is indeed the inner self of all beings. So here the Mundaka Upanishad is talking about what? About the, in fact, if you look at the mantra number 3 and mantra number 4, we are talking about the visible universe and the invisible universe. So the visible universe has got form. So it is called the Murta Prapancha. Murta meaning with form. The invisible universe has got no form because you cannot see it. It's called the Amurta Prapancha. Right? So here the Murta Prapancha is being talked about. And this is described by Shastram as what? You have to, when this particular description is there, you have to think of chapter 11. This is Vishwarupa Ishvara, Virat Ishvara. So just as in chapter 11 of the Bhagavad Gita, the central idea was that the body of the Lord, the body of Ishvara is the entire universe. This same idea is being conveyed here in different words. And in chapter 11 also we discussed, why is it important to think of the universe as the body of the Lord? Why does Veda wants us to see Bhagavan or Ishvara as the whole universe? What could be the answer? You're all advanced students. We need to get the answers from you. Think. What is the central idea of the Upanishad telling us? Look at the whole universe as the body of the Lord. Virat Ishvara or Virat Swarupa. What is the idea? Anybody? Come on, guys.
It's it's to basically realize the fact that it is moving from.
Yes, go ahead.
Is something wrong with my connection? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but it's a bit disjointed.
Yeah, something is wrong. Also, like we studied in chapter 11, we, instead of just confining Ishvara to the form that we believe in, to one form or one concept, we need to look at Ishvara in everything around us. It's basically realizing that everybody's concept of God is the same, and everything around us is nothing but the Lord Himself.
Yeah, very good. So basically, we can think of it as there are two main reasons. One is that Veda wants us to stop seeing the Lord as located in one place. It wants us to move away from the concept of Ekarupa Ishvara. Not that Ishvara is in your temple as Lord Shiva or as Krishna, but he is there everywhere. Universe is infinite, universe is there everywhere. So when you start thinking of the universe as the body of the Lord, then you're beginning to look at the Lord as present in all places. And when you do that, if everything that you see is the Lord's body, then what is the effect on your Raga Dvesha? There should be no Raga Dvesha, because you cannot have Raga or Dvesha towards the Lord. People do have Raga, but at least the Dvesha will stop at the initial stages. So here this mantra is pointing out that learn to see the entire universe as Ishvara. And therefore, when you go into meditation in your dhyanam in the morning, what should you do? You should hand over all your family to Ishvara and then take them back as Ishvara Prasada. And once you get them as Ishvara Prasada, there's an additional advantage. They are now Ishvara Prasada. They are all Bhagavan's property. So you cannot dislike them anymore. However, your problems were there earlier. Okay. So now look at this mantra, the words. First, you have to borrow one word from the previous mantra. Etasmat jayate. That word you borrow from mantra number 3. Etasmat jayate means what? From this Brahman, all this is born. Okay, so that is the first thing. And you connect it to Hi Esha, the last two words of this mantra. Hi Esha Sarva Bhutaha Antaratma. So Tasmat Jayate Hi Esha Sarva Bhuta Antaratma. This is being connected. So Etasmat is what? This Sarva Bhuta Antaratma. This inner self of all beings, which is Brahman. From that Brahman, Etasmat Jayate. Everything is born. And now a list is being given. So from this Vishvarupa Ishvara, which is nothing but Hiranyagarbha, which is nothing but Maya Sahita Brahman. Brahman plus Maya is this Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha, another name is what? The Puranic name for Hiranyagarbha is what?
Ishvara.
No, Puranic name. Name found in the Puranas.
Brahmaji.
Brahmaji. Okay, so Lord Brahmaji is Hiranyagarbha. From this Hiranyagarbha, what is born? If Hiranyagarbha is the Karanam, what is the Karyam?
Virat.
Virat is the Karyam. Okay, so this sequence must be clear. From Ishvara, and when you say that Ishvara, you can think of it as what? Antaryami also. Samashti Shukshma Shariram plus consciousness. From that, Samashti Karana Shariram, from that consciousness principle, which is Karana Shariram, this Hiranyagarbha, Lord Brahmaji is born. From Lord Brahmaji, Virat is born. Okay, so finally Virat is being born from what? Aksharam Brahma alone. Aksharam Brahma being referred to as the Avyakta Maya, otherwise called Samashti Karana Shariram. And that Virat is being described here. Because that's why I said it's a description of the Murta Prapancha, of the Vyakta Prapancha, of the visible universe. The description is of the visible universe, which we all see. So Agnir Murdha, you have to break that. The Ra goes away because of the Sandhi. Agnihi Murdha. So Agnihi is the head. Okay. And literally Agni means fire. But here it is not. So Murdha is the head. Agni is fire. Murdha is the head. So literally it means that the Murdha is Agnihi. So that word means Agnihi Murdha. What means the Murdha, the head is Agnihi. Okay. Agni here is not fire. So there is a meditation called the Panchagni Vidya, in which Swarga, the heavens, are looked upon as Agni. Okay. So this is the meaning given by Shankara in his Bhashyam to the word Agni. He says Agni doesn't mean the local Agni, the fire Devata, it doesn't mean. It means Swarga, the heavens. And Shankara is not random interpretation. Okay, Shankara gives the Shruti quote also. Where does Shruti say that Agni is heaven? So he quotes from the Chandogya Upanishad. He says, Asavava lokaha Gautama Agni. Asavava loka, that loka indeed, hey Gautama, is called Agni. So that loka means Swarga, okay, the heavens. So Shankara has given the Shruti backing for the interpretation that Agni is the heavens. This is Shruti support. Now, is there any Yukti support? Can there be any logical reason given to the meaning that Agni has to be taken as the heavens? So you look at the mantra itself, right? He says, Padbhyam Prithvihi. So from his feet, the Prithvi, Bhuloka, this earth is born. And therefore, if Bhuloka, the earth, is taken at the feet of Virat, we are saying Virat is the feet of the earth are the feet of Virat. And if that interpretation is taken, then where must the head of Virat Ishvara be? Above the feet, so above the earth. And what is above the earth? Swargaloka. Right? We have to look at the Puranic context of the 7 lokas. So we have earth is the middle loka and all the above are Swargalokas. Therefore, from that logical interpretation also, since the feet are being taken as the earth, the heaven has to be taken as the head. That's the logical interpretation. Also, look at the other words. Chakshushi Chandra Suryoho. The eyes are Chandra and Surya. The eyes of Virat Ishvara are the sun and the moon. And the eyes are also above us because sun and the moon are above us. And the eyes must be in the head. Therefore, the head must be above us. Therefore, it is Swargaloka. So there are two backups for this explanation that Agni is equal to Swargaloka. One is the Shruti backup from Chandogya, and one is the Yukti backup, logical interpretation. So it means that this Virat Ishvara's head are the upper lokas, the Swarga. All the upper lokas form his head. Okay. What is the interpretation of the statement that all the upper lokas together form his head? Because if you are taking him as a located entity, as a physical entity, then since all the upper lokas form his head, it means that there are no lokas beyond him. And if you reinterpret that statement, what does it mean? When I say there are no lokas beyond Virat, how can you reinterpret that statement Vedantically?
He is the entire universe.
Yeah, so all the lokas are located in Virat alone. The entire universe is in Virat alone. That's what it means. Okay. Then Chakshushi, the eyes, are Chandra Suryaha. The eyes are the moon and the sun. Then Dishaha, Shrotre. So Dishaha means the 4 quarters of the sky. The 4 primary directions. So north, south, east, west. And we have to include all the secondary directions also. So the northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. For the 4 primary, 4 secondary is 8. Then there are 2 more, up and down. So totally 10 directions are normally taken when you say Disha. That is the 4 main quarters, 4 main directions, the 4 secondary directions, and up and down. These are taken, totally 10 directions are taken as all the quarters of the sky. They are all Shrotre. They are all his ears, which means everything he hears. Then the next one is, look at the second line, Vak Vivritascha Vedaha. So Vivritascha is the well-known Veda. So Vivritascha Vedaha. The well-known Vedas are his vak, his mouth, his speech. And therefore, whatever Shastram tells us are Veda, are the instructions of Virat Ishvara alone. Okay. And there are thousands of verses. The four Vedas themselves contain something like 20,000 verses. The Mahabharata itself is more than 100,000 verses. There are 18 Puranas, 18 sub-Puranas. The scriptural literature is immense. It can never be really completed by one person in his entire lifetime. And that is why we look at the Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita is said to represent all the Vedas. It's extract of all the Vedas. Now, Veda is called Shruti also. Why Shruti? Because Shruti is from the Shrotra. The rishis heard the Vedas in their tapas. They heard these mantras, and then they remembered it and passed it on to us. That's why it's called Shruti. Then third line, Vayuhu Pranaha. The wind is his breath. And why is the wind his breath? Why is it his prana? Because it is from that prana that we all jivas, we get our prana. We draw our prana from the prana of this Virat Ishvara alone. So Vayuhu Pranaha. And then Hridayam Vishwam Asya. This Asya Vishwam Hridayam. Asya Vishwam Viratasya Hridayam. This Vishwam, this universe, is the heart of the Virat Ishvara. Now here essentially, because all beings, later on we will say that the entire universe and all its objects are only a thought in his mind. They are all thoughts in the mind of Ishvara. And therefore, here we should have said that his mind is the universe, right? Because if like in our dream, your dream universe is where? Is in your mind. And therefore, you can say that your mind is the dream universe. So, Swapna Prapancha is your mind. That can be said. A similar analogy is here. He's saying that the entire universe is in the mind of Ishvara, of Virat Ishvara. Then why does he say Hridayam? Can anybody give an answer? Why does the Shruti say Hridayam instead of Manaha?
Because that is the Golakam for the mind.
Excellent. So the heart is the Golakam for the mind Indriya, and therefore Shruti says Hridayam, Shankara says, remember to connect this to the mind, because mind is the Indriya, heart is only the Golakam. So the universe is nothing but thoughts in the mind of Virateshwara, and that mind we know as Maya. Therefore, the universe is nothing but Maya Vritti, thoughts in Maya, which is the mind of Ishvara. And we can connect this straight away to just as our dream universe is nothing but Manovritti, the thoughts in our own mind, the thoughts in the mind of the waker. Similarly, this Vyavaharika Jagat is nothing but thoughts in the mind of Brahman, the mind being Maya. And Shankara gives a good description. He says, Sarvahi, everything, Sarvam hi, everything, means the entire universe is nothing but Antakaranam Vikaram Eva. Is nothing but a Vikaram, a modification where Antakaranam. Who is Antakaranam? In the Antakaranam of which Ishvara now? When he says Sarvahi Antakaranam Vikaram Eva, he's saying there's a modification in the mind of somebody. And
Sagun Ishvara.
Saguna Ishvara, which is what? Hiranyagarbha. Okay, the Lord Brahmaji only. Because Virat is the product. So Virat is the result of the modification in the mind of Hiranyagarbha. And Shankara says, he adds, just as the modification in the mind brings this universe to existence, the Jagat, the universe can be seen to be destroyed in his mind also. Okay. Now here, in his commentary, Shankara very interestingly says, Jagat Manasyeva Sushupte pralaya darshanat. Very interesting choice of words. Jagat manasi eva means the Jagat is manasi eva. The Jagat is in the mind only. As if, eva here is as if. Okay. Then it adds two words, sushupte and pralaya, thereby indicating that the Jagat is in the mind where his pralaya meaning destruction. Okay. So this destruction of the whole world, it takes place in the mind of Brahmaji only, just as the destruction of your dream universe takes place in your mind. That is why he adds the word sushupti. Otherwise, it is sufficient to say Jagat Manasi Eva Pralaya Darshanat is seen to be destroyed at the time of Pralayam. And that Pralayam is Manasi Eva, it's in the mind only. But by adding the word Sushupte, he says that that word Sushupte is very important. It means basically that this concept of the creation and destruction of the mind destruction of the world in the mind of Ishvara, that concept has to be extended to the creation and destruction of the dream universe in your mind. So the Jagat is brought into existence in Ishvara's mind. Your dream Jagat, your dream world is brought into existence in your mind. The dream world gets destroyed in your mind. The Jagat gets destroyed in Ishvara's mind. So this has to be understood in both the Vyashti and the Samashti concept. There is, of course, one major difference. What is that? In the destruction of the world, the destruction of the world in Ishvara's mind, and in the destruction of the world in your mind, there is a major difference. What is that? Okay, let me try to make it clearer. When Ishvara wakes up, so to say, when Lord Brahmaji wakes up, what happens?
The world is actually destroyed, but when we wake up, it's as though destroyed.
Yeah, so when you wake up, it is not for manifestation of the world, not for creation of the world. When you wake up, it is for experiencing the world. When Ishvara wakes up, it is for creating the world. That one little difference one must know. When we go into Sushupti, the world is destroyed for us, just like when Ishvara goes into sleep, the world is destroyed. But when we wake up, we don't wake up to create the world. We wake up to experience the world. When Ishvara wakes up, the world is created. Anyway, when the mind resolves, for me, the world goes away. The world can be experienced by me only when the mind is awake. The world is not created by me. It is experienced by me when I'm awake. What is the conclusion from both these set of statements? That when Ishvara wakes up, the world is created. When Ishvara goes to sleep, the world is destroyed. When I go to sleep, my dream world is created. When I wake up, what happens? My dream world is destroyed, but I wake up to the Vyavaharika Satyam, the Vyavaharika world. The conclusion here is that both the worlds, the real world or the Vyavaharika world, is non-separate from the mind of Ishvara. The dream world is non-separate from my mind. And generalizing it, the world is never separate from your mind. When you use it for a jiva, the world is separate, the Vyavaharika world is separate from your mind. The Swapna world is not separate from your mind. In case of Ishvara, There is no pratibhasika. So the whole thing is talking about Vyavaharika only. The Vyavaharika world is not separate from the mind of Ishvara. So you have to carefully understand that what is being referred to here is the modification of Ishvara's mind. From the individual point of view, that word Eva, which Shankara uses, is very important. As if modification of my mind. It's not a real modification, but it's as if modification. Not the dream world, the real world. Okay. Why do we spend so much time on this kind of a topic? Because when we say mithya, there are many people who say, yes, the world is a mental projection. So one of the major darshanas which says this, that world is only a mental projection, is who? Which darshana? Anybody?
Sankhya.
No. Buddhism. Buddhism says that Jagat is only a mental projection. And that is why they have the concept of emptiness of mind, shunyata. But Advaitam says that the world is not a mental projection. The world is a projection of Ishvara's mind. Buddhism says it's a projection of your mind. We differ. We say it is a projection of Ishvara's mind. So there's a big difference between our viewpoint and the viewpoint of Buddhism. Okay, remember Buddhism was a major opponent during Shankara's time. So Shankara spends a lot of time trying to negate Buddhism also. But there is a problem here. In some places, Shankara himself, plus Gaudapada, his guru's guru, they do refer to the world as a mental projection. And this leads to a lot of controversies, because there are statements where Shankara has said the world is a mental projection. He meant mental projection of Ishvara, but the words don't indicate it very clearly, and therefore it leads to a lot of controversy. Some people even say that Shankara is actually a disguised Buddhist. He just pretends to be Advaitin, but his views are Buddhist only. But if you look at Brahma Sutra, there's a Brahma Sutra Bhashyam, where there's a very clear analysis done, and Shankara very clearly says that the Buddhist view that the world is a mental projection is not acceptable. The world as a mental projection, what do we call it in our language, in Advaitic language?
Sushupti.
Maya.
No, there is a very, we are talking about Pratibhasika Satyam. Okay, Pratibhasika Satyam is the subjective reality. So the view that the world is a subjective reality is true for us, but it's true in respect of what? In respect of your dream world. And that is the distinction between us and the Buddhists. Buddhists say that the Vyavaharika world is your mental projection, subjective. And that we don't agree to. For us, the world is Vyavaharika Satyam. So from my point of view, when I wake up, not, the waker I'm talking about, okay. The difference is that this dream world is projected when the waker goes to sleep. So the dreamer projects the dream world. And when the dreamer resolves into the waker, the dream world is gone. It is resolved also. But it is the reverse in Ishvara's case. When Lord Brahmaji wakes up, that is the time when creation happens. And when Lord Brahmaji goes to sleep, that is the time when Pralayam happens. Okay. So from Vyashti Jiva's point, not from the dreamer's point, from the Vyashti Jiva's point, when I wake up, I always wake up and experience the world. I don't project the world. I project only the dream world. But that is in my role as the dreamer, not as the waker. As a waker, I experience the Jagat, the Vyavaharika world, which is the mental projection of Ishvara. Okay, therefore the world is the projection of the mind of Virat, or of Hiranyagarbha. This is the conclusion, and this negates Buddhism. Now look at the words, other words. It says, Padbhyam, the last line, Padbhyam Prithvi. From his feet, Padbhyam, Prithvi, the feet, the Prithvi emerged. So the earth is described as the feet of Lord Brahmaji. And this entire Vishwarupa was born out of what? From Paramatma, from Brahman. So to understand this creation, now we can look at it in 3 different steps, and each step, or each level, so to say, not a step, is a refinement of the previous step. The first understanding is what? Brahman or Ishvara Jagat Karta, right? Ishvara is the creator of the universe. That is the first level of understanding. If you remember all that we have discussed during Bhagavad Gita, whatever we have learnt from the Srishti part, from the Anatma teachings of Bhagavad Gita is only this. First time we said, Ishvara creates the universe. After some time, our ideas became a little bit more refined. So then we said, Ishvara does not create the universe, Ishvara becomes the universe. So this was the Upadana Karanam concept, right? Then, now we are saying that Ishvara did not create the universe, did not become the universe, but appears as the universe without undergoing any change at all. So from the Parinami Upadana Karanam, we are coming to the Vivarta Upadana Karanam. I hope you know those words, okay? Parinami Upadana Karanam is the changing material cause, modifying material cause. Vivarta Upadana Karanam is the cause of something, but that something itself, the cause itself does not undergo a change. And one example is the waker, who does not undergo a change when he appears as the dreamer in the dream world. The waker does not undergo a change. He just appears as the dreamer in the dream world. And by saying that this universe is appearing as Brahman without Brahman undergoing a change, Shastram is telling us that this is only an intermediate statement. Don't take it as the final truth. The final truth is different, right? So just as we talk about sunrise and sunset, even in spite of knowing that the sun does not move, it is the earth which moves. So he's telling us that the universe is a transactional reality. It is not the absolute reality. And this universe as an appearance, Ishvara as appearing as the universe, is what is being talked about in this verse. So Amurta is invisible prapancha, is the Hiranyagarbha Tattva. And this was seen where? This was seen in the mantra number 3, where we said, Etasma jayate pranaha mana sarvendriyanischa. This was the Hiranyagarbha Tattvam, Hiranyagarbha aspect, Amurta prapancha. And this 4th mantra is talking about the Murta Prapancha, the visible universe, which is called Virat. Okay. So with this, I will stop here in case you have any questions about the 4th mantra. There is nothing new in all this. As you will notice, it's all the same ideas which we have learned during Bhagavad Gita classes. They are just being restated in different words. Okay, any questions?
Sorry, hello, Raviji.
Yes, Natraji.
Hi. Yeah. Is there any concept of Ishvara dreaming state? Ishvara's dreaming state. Originally, I thought you were actually describing our reality as the dream of Ishvara, but then you said when Ishvara wakes up, this is the
Yeah.
reality that we have.
So the
So-
thoughts in Ishvara's mind are the
Yeah.
universe.
Right.
Though lot
Any
of
differentiation?
no differentiation, because a lot of people use the world is a dream of Ishvara, but
Mm.
this particular mantra doesn't really, subscribe to that.
Okay.
So we are
Just
saying
the thought.
there is no dreaming part of Ishvara. Apparently, he doesn't
Mm.
have dreams.
Okay.
He's either sleeping or he's awake.
Yeah, okay. That would imply that, because the difference between a dream and waking state is, of course, that in a waking state we have some deliberate control, whereas in a dream we are pretty much helpless.
We are pretty much helpless. You don't have any free will in the dream.
Right. So that would imply that this universe is running according to Ishvara's
Intentions. That is why we also say that Ishvara does not have free will, because there's a set of laws according to which the universe functions. There are physical laws, there's a law of karma. Everything is within that. To expect Ishvara to interfere with that, only
Yeah.
exceptional circumstances are there, like when avatar is required.
Mm. All right. Thank you.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, I'll go to the next one. So we look at the 5th verse. So the 5th verse is Tasmad Agni Samidho Yasya Suryaha Somat Parjanya Oshadaya Prithivyam Puman Retaha Sinchati Yoshitayam Bahavi Prajaha Purushat Samprasutaha. So Tasmat, from that. Then Agnihi is of course the heavens. Then Samidho Yasya Suryaha. That heaven is brightly lit by the sun. Then Somat Parjanya. Somat Parjanya is from that rains come from where? From the moon. So from the moon it says Parjanya. Here normally Parjanya is rains, but here Parjanya has a specific meaning, Megaha, clouds. So here literal translation be from the Soma, from the moon, the clouds are born. Then Oshadhaya are also born. All that you have to supply. The verb is only given once. So here from that Brahman, the heavens are born, the moon is born. From the moon, the clouds are born. Oshadhaya, Annam is born, grains are born. Prithivi, earth is born. Puman Purushaha, Puman is Purushaha. Retaha Sinchati Yoshitayam, that Puman places the seed in the female. Nari is the female body. Bahavif Prajaha, many living beings. Samprasutaha Purushat. So that last line you have to take first. Purushat Samprasutaha. From that Purushaha, from that Brahman, the following things are born. It's a very technical mantra. It is talking about the entire universe and the arrival of the jivas. Okay. Essentially, this verse talks about the arrival of the jivas. So jivas are not created, as we all know, right? They have always existed in unmanifest form before the creation. So at Pralayam time, it's not that jivas are gone. The physical bodies are not there, but everything exists in Karana form. The mind and the karmas, they are all in Avyakta form. This is Karana Shariram. They are all in the Antaryami state. They all remain in Maya. And out of this Karana Shariram alone, Samashti Karana Shariram alone, all the bodies, subtle bodies, physical bodies, minds are all created, they are all manifested. And when Pralayam comes, all these go back into Karana Shariram, into the causal state. So here, the process by which the jiva takes a new body, this is being discussed. Okay. Now this we have not done before. The exact process whereby the jiva takes a body is not done. And here it is given very sketchily. No details are given. But in the third chapter of Brahma Sutra, there is a very detailed discussion by Shankaracharya on how this process takes place. So just for understanding, I'll give a brief outline of that discussion in chapter 3 of Brahma Sutras. So the essence is, at the time that the physical body dies, when the gross body dies, what happens? The subtle body is separated, right? The jiva is separated from the physical body. Why? Because the prarabdha of the body, or the physical body, has been completed, has been exhausted, so that current physical body has no utility, and therefore the jiva separates. The subtle body separates from the physical body. And this separation of subtle body from the physical body is what we call death, maranam. Okay. Now, it says, the discussion says that why did this physical body die? Because the current prarabdha has been exhausted. And even as the current physical body is being disposed of, how is the disposal? It is a ritual. It is not just going to the burning ghats or going to the crematorium. There is a ritual death, right? And this cremation is a ritual where the jiva is saying that this work, the work that I was supposed to do, the utility of my physical body is now over. So I am handing it back to you, O Bhagavan. That is the cremation ritual. And Shastram says that when the body is disposed of, what is happening? There is an exchange program. The old body is handed over by the jiva to Agni Devata on the cremation fire, right? On the fire. And then at the same time, when the old body is handed over, who is handing over the old body? The jiva. The Sukshma Shariram plus Karma Shariram, blessed by consciousness, is handing over this body to the Ishvara. And while handing over, the Shastram says the Lord is asked for the next body. Because karma is still there, karma has to be exhausted. So it's an exchange. I am giving my old body, you give me a new body. So according to Shastra, at the moment of the cremation itself, the very moment when the physical body is being cremated, the next body is provided to the jiva in a very minuscule form, in a very minute form. So the essence here is that when the physical body is being created, the jiva collects the next body. There is no gap. It's not that jiva roams around looking for a body. He collects the next body, but the body is not in a condition for any transaction. It is a very seed form of the body. You can say it's yet to become a full-fledged body. It's a body in potential form, but it has been given already. And that body has to now evolve. And there is some of the Upanishads talk about it. There is a process for this evolution. So this minute body, this rudimentary body, evolves to the next physical body by passing through 5 processing centers. I'm using the word processing centers for the lack of a better word. Okay, some processes take place, and these processing centers are given names. They are called Swarga, that is heavens, Megaha, clouds, Prithvi, earth, Purushaha, the male, and Nari, the female. So there are 5 processing centers. Now, remember, this is all karma kanda, okay? But it is there, so we are trying to understand. So that very same jiva who has been given that rudimentary body by Bhagavan at the time of creation, cremation of the old body, he has to pass through all these 5 centers. And after passing through each center, a little bit of refinement takes place on the body, and each refinement is given a name. So the jiva gets different names after each processing center. So after the first processing center, which is what? Which is Swarga. After the first processing center, he gets the name Soma. Then after the second center, he gets the name Vrishti. After the third processing center, he gets the name Annam. After the fourth, he gets the name Retaha. After the fifth, he gets the name Prajaha. Okay, this is the process with regard to jivas. Not all jivas. We're talking about certain types of jivas. And here in this mantra, of course, Vrishti is not mentioned. The others are there in different names. So let us look at what I have just said and what is being said here in this mantra. So the first processing center is Swarga. Okay. So after dropping the body, physical body, the jiva takes his minute body from the Lord and goes to Swarga. Okay. Here again, going to Swarga is for 2 purposes. One is as a result of your papam and punyam. So which as a of punyam. So you go there for enjoyment. So that is not the process being referred to here. Here Swarga is the processing center to enable the jiva to take birth in a new body. So there's a certain processing done over here. After that processing, details are not given. After that processing, a new name is given to the jiva who leaves Swarga. That new jiva is called Somaha, the moon basically. Okay. Then that Somaha goes to the second processing center, Megha, the clouds. And after being processed in the Megha, he is given a new name. Somaha name is dropped. And a new name is Vrishti, rain. Okay. Then he goes to the third center, which is Prithvi. Okay. And after being processed here, that jiva is given a new name, Annam, food. Then the fourth processing center is the male body, Purushaha. So jiva comes into the main body, which means Annam comes into the main body. Annam is the jiva after Prithvi's processing. And that Annam comes into the male body and becomes Retaha. So Retaha is semen or sperm. That jiva becomes the sperm, the seed in the body of the male. And then that seed, the semen or sperm, is transferred to the fifth processor center, which is the Nari, the female body. So this jiva is transferred from the male body in its almost final stage to the female body. And after that, a new name is given, Prajaha. When the jiva goes to the female body, that jiva gets a new name called Prajaha, which is human being. Okay. This is the process of the jiva being formed, which is mentioned. And each of these processes is looked upon as a homam, as a fire ritual, and is called Agni. And there is, as I said, there is a meditation process called Panchagni Vidya. It's a meditation process. And in that process, each center is called Agni. Each of these processes is called Agni. And in this mantra, that process of creation is being described using the language of this Panchagni Vidya. And who is the Panchagni? Ishvara is looked upon as the Panchagni. Okay, now look at the words. Tasmat Agnihi, from that Agni, which is Brahman, Panchagni. From the Brahman, all the higher lokas came. Samidho Yasya Suryaha. So Samidha Agni is bright Agni, which means all the bright upper lokas. So from that Brahman came all the bright upper lokas. And for this Agni, Suryaha is the fuel. The sun is the fuel. So the first fire to be meditated upon in this Panchagni Vidya is Swargaloka, which is being called Agni over here. Then Somat Parjanyaha. From the moon, the clouds are born. Okay, here we can take, instead of moon, we can take it as the evaporated water, so water vapor. And the clouds are the condensation. So Somat Parjanyaha. From this water vapor, the clouds are born. So the clouds are the second Agni, the Megha, second Agni. Panchagni is there. 5 Agni should be there. First one is Surya Swarga Loka. Second is the clouds, the Megha. Then Oshadhaya Prithivya. From the clouds, what happens? Plants are born on earth. So the rest of the description you have to fill up. From the clouds, what comes? The rain comes. And because of the rain, there are plants on the earth. And that is why food is always considered as vegetarian in the scriptures, because it is grown from the earth. And therefore, Prithvi, the earth, is the third Agni. Then comes Puman Retaha Sinchati Yoshitaya. We are in the third line of the mantra. This Annam is taken by Puman, by the Purusha. It is eaten by offering it to the digestive fire in the person's body. So that this food, this Annam, is the oblation for the Panchapranas. And therefore one says, like when you're supposed to be eating, you're supposed to be saying Pranaya Swaha, Apanaya Swaha, Samanaya Swaha, Danaya Swaha, or Brahmane Swaha. All these things supposed to say. Why? Pranaya Swaha is you're offering it to the prana. The prana responsible for your respiratory activities. Then Apanaya Swaha, you're offering to the prana, which is responsible for the evacuation processes. Then Vyanaya Swaha, you're offering the oblation to whom? The prana, the fire, responsible for your circulatory system. Then Samanaya Swaha, you're offering it to the fire responsible for your digestion. Then Udanaya Swaha, you're offering to the prana responsible for the emergency functions, the vomiting, the sneezing. And of course, Udanaya Swaha has one very important function also, apart from emergency functions. What is that?
It ejects the Sukshma Sharira from Sthola Sharira.
Yeah, at the time of death, the withdrawal or the ejection, as you say, of the Sukshma Shariram is possible because of Udana. And finally, you offer it to Brahmane Swaha. Brahmane is Hiranyagarbha, because all the Pancha Prana comes from him alone. So Brahmane Swaha. These 6 offerings should be made while you are eating. Okay. Now the Puman, the male who consumes the Annam, therefore, is the 4th fire. And in his body, this food, the Annam, is converted into Retaha, the semen, the seed. And he says, Puman Retaha, the seed of the male, Sinchati, is placed, Yoshitaya. So Yoshitaya is the female or the wife. And she is the 5th and last Agni. And from that, Bahavi Prajaha, many types of beings, Bahavihi, many types, Prajaha, of living beings, Purushat Samprasutaha, Samprasuta, born from Purushaha. Samprasuta, because it is not just one type of being, all beings are born from that Brahman. Okay, and incidentally, the birth is supposed to, the creation of the jivas is supposed to follow a certain order according to karma. So devatas are born first, and then there are activities necessary for birth of humans, all those things. And of course, I mentioned earlier that we can't say that all jivas are born in this manner. Plants, for example, will not be born this manner. So they are excluded. Plants and trees, they are excluded. So majority of jivas are born in this manner. This is the crux of the fifth mantra. We have time for one more, but before that, any questions? No questions.
But for the first time, very interesting.
Karmakanda is always
Sounds
more
like-
interesting than Upasana.
Is there any time?
Is there?
Is there any time frame for this process mentioned anywhere?
No, it's not mentioned.
This 5 process.
No, it's not mentioned.
Okay, sir.
So the Upanishad keeps all these details, delightfully vague. But I did mention sometime earlier that the Upanishad has a tatparyam. All the Upanishads have got a tatparyam. The essence of the teaching. What is that? What is the essential idea being conveyed by Upanishad? Or Brahma Sutra for that matter, or Bhagavad Gita.
Sarvam Brahma.
Sarvam Brahman. That is the only idea being conveyed. Right? So if you look at across all this Shastram, you will find that as far as the teaching of Sarvam Brahma, that is Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, as far as that teaching goes, it is consistent across all the Shastram. While as far as Anatma goes, you will find Tattvabodha says some procedure, Chandogya says some procedure, somebody else says some procedure. Chandogya, for example, gives only three Mahabhutanis in 3 elements, but Tattvabodha gives 5 elements. So inconsistencies you will find in Anatma teaching. But consistently there in the Brahma Satyam teaching. So we say that is because Shruti is not very particular about how it presents Anatma. Ultimately, all Anatma is presented for only one purpose. What is that? Any presentation of Anatma has only one purpose.
To understand the Atma.
By negation of
By
the
negation.
Anatma, what remains will be the Atma. Only that is there. That is why Shruti is not very particular. Okay. Now we look at the 6th one. So, Tasmat, Tasmat Rich, you have to break it up into Tasmat, Rik, Rig Vedas, Rik, Sama, Yajumshi, Dikshaha, Yagyascha Sarve, Kratavo, Dakshinascha, Samvatsarascha, Yajamanascha Lokaha, Somo Yatra, Pavate Yatra Suryaha. This is the words. Tasmat. Tasmat again is from that. From what? From that Purusha, from that Brahman. So remember here, we are presenting all the various things which are born from Brahman. Right? From verse number 3 onwards, a list is being given of what all things are being born from Brahman alone. So Tasmat, from that Brahman. Rich. Richaha here is Rig Veda, the Vedic hymns. Then Sama, the Sama Veda mantras, the Rig Veda mantras. Yajumshi is Yajur Veda. Somewhere you will find the pronunciation as Yajugumshi. Anyway, it's the same thing. So it's the Yajur Veda, all the mantras of the Yajur Veda. Then the Diksha. The Diksha here is all the rituals observed by the person doing the yaga or the yajna. So Diksha is rituals to be observed by the Yajamana. Okay, that's the first line. Then Yajnascha. all the yajnas, and sarve kritavaha. So here there is a difference between yajna and kritavaha, which we talked about in Bhagavad Gita also, but I'll just recall it later over here. So yajna is a ritual, kritava also is a ritual. There's a difference in them that we'll come to. Then dakshinacha. Dakshina is not the southern direction, but it is a direct gifts given to the priests. So dakshina which you give to the priest. Then samvatsarascha. Samvatsara literally means the year. Okay. Why is it the year that we come to? And it actually is not the year, but the word you used is samvatsara. So we have to rely upon. And samvatsara can be taken that the year also is born out of Brahman, but Shankara has a different view that we'll come to. Then yajamanascha lokaha. So the sacrifices and the worlds. So yajama cha loka, all sacrifices and the worlds. Somaha, the moon. Yatra. Pavate means purifies. So yatra somaha pavate, where the moon purifies. Yatra suryaha, you have to add the word, repeat the word pavate over there, the verb over there, where the sun also purifies. Okay. So in short, in English, from that Brahman, that Ishvara, are born the mantras of the Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, as well as all the Dakshinas are born. Now, here you can take Samvatsara. We'll come to what it actually means. Actually, it means Kala Tattva, the time factor. So how that is arrived at, we'll see. And then all the worlds are born. So the 14 worlds, which are purified by the moon and the sun. Purified you can take as which are lit up by the moon and the sun. Worlds are being illumined by the moon and the sun. So very obscure verses by themselves. We always need Shankara to tell us what it is all about. That is why when people say that I have read, I have gone through the Upanishads, it's always to be taken with a bit of salt, because what has actually gone through him is a different matter. Reading the words by themselves without the commentary of Shankara has no meaning at all. And even the commentary has to be explained by a teacher. That's why we say go to a teacher. So here again in this verse, in the 6th verse, creation is being talked about. He says everything appears in this world because of karma. And because of karma alone, bodies are taken. And because of this body alone, you can experience pleasure and pain, which is the result of your karma phalam. What is the aim of the jiva? The aim of the jiva should be to have a better standard of living by reducing papam and increasing punya. So by reducing papa karma and increasing punya karma. And for this purpose, the Lord provides a method. Bhagavan provides a method. And this way of life is presented in the Vedic scriptures. Okay. And the Vedas are, we saw, in the 4th mantra we saw, the Vedas are symbolized as the very words of the Lord. Okay, now look at the first line. Tasmat Rik Sama Yajumshi Dikshaha. So some texts will have a different notation after Yaju. So it becomes Yajugumshi. It makes no difference. It's a Vedic Anuswara. So Yajugumshi is okay. Yajumshi is also okay. So Tasmat. From that Brahman, which is what? Maya Sahita Brahman. Brahman plus Maya, Ishvara. From that Ishvara came the Vedas. The 4 Vedas. Rik, Sama, Yajur. You have to supply Atharvana also. Okay. Why should you supply Atharvana? He doesn't mention Atharvana over here. He says only Sam, Yaju, and Rik. But it is essential for us to supply Atharvana. Why?
From Atharva Rishi only all this knowledge came then that we are studying.
No, I want you to specify what that means. Atharvan Rishi, he said to be behind Atharva Veda,
Mm.
but it's not included here. So why should we include it? It's a very obvious question, actually.
Because this Mundak, the prayer we do from Atharva Veda, Bhadrankar.
Not prayer. The whole Mundaka
Awesome.
belongs to Atharvana Veda.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you can't exclude the Atharvana here. Mundaka Upanishad is a Atharvana Upanishad. Okay. So
Okay.
Vedas came through the medium of the rishis because of, and they saw the Veda, all that I told you. Shruti, they saw in there, with the intuitive power, they were able to receive the mantras, all that is there. And that is why rishis are called mantra rashtaha, the one who see the mantras or hear the mantras. And Vedas can have a small discussion on Vedas. Vedas are of two types, Mantra Veda and Brahmana Veda. Okay. Mantra Vedas are usually Rik mantras. And mantra meaning what? They have a certain order. They have a certain form, a meter. So they follow the rules of Chanda. Like you have Gayatri Chanda, you have Anushtup Chandra, you have Trishtup Chandra. They are always in metric form and are capable of being chanted. Okay. Samaveda refers to mantras from Samaveda, which can be the same as Rig mantras, which means all Rig mantras, Rig mantra meaning Rig Veda mantras, they are always in metric form and they are capable of being chanted. Samaveda mantras are also in metric form, but there is a difference. Instead of chanting, they can be sung with musical notes. That is why Samagana we say. Then Yajurveda mantras are from Yajurveda and then prose form. So Yajurveda, when you do a Yajurveda Upanishad, you will find that it is basically all running prose. There is no chanda, nothing. Mundaka also is there. Then Sarve Yajñascha. All rituals, Sarve Yajñaha, all rituals come from Ishvara. And Yajñaha Kritavaha. So there are two words used. Yajñaha, Yajñascha, Sarve Kritavo. That is Kritavaha. Sometimes you will find that the word Yajña is used along with the word Kritu, which is here, like here it's being used. Yajñascha Kritavaha. Both are rituals. Okay. The distinction is that Kritu is a Yajña which had a ceremonial sacrifice. It could be animal sacrifice also, okay? And they were mostly for large, complex yajñas like the Ashwamedha Yajña. And in all these Kritu yajñas or Kritu rituals, there is a central pole, a sacrificial pole to which the animal which is being sacrificed is bound. That pole is called a yupa. It may not be very important for you, but just remember it's called a yupa. So if you want to give the technical distinction between yajna and kritau, the yajna with the ritual with a yupa is called kritau. Without the yupa is called yajna. That is the technical distinction. That pole defines whether it's a yajna or a krita. So yajnas are Vedic rituals without any animal sacrifices. Kritavas are rituals where animal sacrifices were there. Of course, you can always say that can be optional also. You can make an image of the animal also. But in the old days, Kritavas were rituals where the yupa was there, where animal sacrifices are very much there. And why are these being offered? They are being offered to indicate that you are transcending your animal tendencies. Okay, now, unfortunately for the animal, it means death. But the meaning given in Shastram is that they are transcending the animal tendencies. That is why you are offering the animal as a sacrifice. Now, in Bhagavad Gita, if you remember, Kritau Shankara defined as Shrauta Yajna. means a yajna which is mentioned in Shruti. And yajna he defined as Mata yajna. Yajna defined in Smritis. So the same Shankara has given two meanings, one in here and one in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita simply says Kratava means Shrauta yajna, yajna means Mata yajna. Both are correct. Okay. We have to understand that there are rituals with Yopa, with animal sacrifices, but we can avoid such rituals. Though Shankara makes a very clear statement saying that because this Kratau, the sacrifice with Yupa, is part of the Veda, he says there is no violation of the Ahimsa rule in the Kratau ritual where animal sacrifices are involved. Okay, so that is up to you to, he just makes the statement that Ahimsa is not violated where the Veda prescribes an animal sacrifice. And the sacrifice is carried out. I leave it to your judgment. I wouldn't do it. So that's why I said it's optional. Then the next word is Dikshaha. So Diksha, there are some rituals which are associated, which are done by the Yajamana. And they are associated with all the sacrifices, all the rituals. For example, in some cases, the Yajamana has to wear a ring made of some darba grass. Okay. In other cases, you will find that a thread is tied on the wrist. So both this, the ring as well as the thread, it indicates that that person, the Yajamana who is doing the ritual, by wearing the ring or the thread, he is making commitment that he will sit in front of the ritual and not get up till the whole ritual is over. So it can also be a sankalpa taken before the ritual, need not be the darba grass. So all these disciplines, the darba or the wrist, thread on the wrist or the sankalpa, these fall under the head of Dikshaha. Okay. Then is Dakshinascha. Dakshinascha is Dakshina given to the priest. And Shankara here adds that Dakshina can start from one cow and can include everything that you have, including all your wealth, house, farm, everything. Which is why, Nachiketas took his father very seriously when his father said, I give you to Yama. Because that was one of those yajnas where everything was being given. Okay. Then the next word is Samvatsarascha. So literally, Samvatsaram means 1 year. Eka Samvatsaram means 1 year. But Shankara says that here you cannot take the meaning of the calendar year. It has to mean the time principle, like, Tithi. Tithi is the, or Tithi, or we call it Tithi, Nakshatra, Vara. That time at which the ritual is supposed to be performed. Right? For example, Sandhya Vandanam. When is Sandhya Vandanam supposed to be performed? There is a ritual called Sandhya Vandanam. When is it supposed to be performed?
Sunrise and sunset.
More specific answer?
Sunrise.
Anybody else?
Dawn and dusk.
The answer is in the name. Look at the name.
Evening. Sun during the evening.
When did the transition from one to the other?
Yes, the transition from one to the other. So why is it called Sandhya? What is the word, the commonly used word from which Sandhya comes?
Sandhi.
From Sandhi, right? Sandhi means joining. And therefore, it's the junction. So the junction between night and morning, that is one, morning Sandhya Vandanam. The junction between morning and afternoon, that is one. And the junction between afternoon and night, that is one. So there are actually 3 Sandhyas. commonly we take it as dawn and dusk, but there is a Sandhya at the junction between the morning and afternoon and the morning and the afternoon also. So really speaking, 3 Sandhyas. Vandanam simply means what? Worship. So Sandhya Vandanam, that worship which is done during Sandhya time. And Sandhya, one of the meanings is evening, as Sharmila said, okay, but it is not the real meaning. Sandhya meaning is jahan pe, where the sandhi takes place, where the conjunction of 2 time periods take place. So night, morning, morning, afternoon, afternoon, night. Okay, so this is the tithi. You should not be doing Sandhya Vandanam at any time excepting these 3 times. That is called the tithi, the right time. And that's what Shankara says, that this Samvatsara here should be taken to mean that time principle when the Veda says that you should perform. So for example, Aditya Hridayam. When is Aditya Hridayam supposed to be chanted?
Morning.
No. More specific.
Just before sunrise to welcome the sun.
Exactly. When Aditya comes out, that is the time Aditya Hridayam is chanted. When should you do your Surya Namaskara? Obviously, when the Surya is coming up, not when he's in the sky. Okay, so this sort of rules, this is called Samvatsara over here, the right time to perform. So here Samvatsara refers to the knowledge of the time as specified by the Veda, where the ritual is to be performed. Okay, now in all these discussions, what are we discussing actually? We're giving so many things, but never forget why we are discussing them. Why are we discussing? What is the reason we are discussing all these various unconnected things? No?
Ways to maybe correct our karmas from papam to punyam.
Purushat samprasutaha. We are all born from Ishvara alone. That is what we are discussing. So because we are discussing in detail, you should not forget that all this is being discussed with only one end in mind. They are all born from Ishvara only. They are nothing but Ishvara. Okay. Then Yajamanascha. Yajamanaha, the one who does the sacrifice. He should be a person who is eligible for the sacrifice. Okay. Now, Agnihotram, for example, can be done only by a Grahastha. So the first rule for doing Agnihotram is that you should have a wife. You should have got married. There are many such rules. Okay, there are some rituals which can be done by brahmacharis, but not by brahmacharis whose hair has turned grey. Okay, only if you've got no grey hair can you perform. So there's so many of these rules. Now, the phalam of the ritual goes to the Yajamana, even though Yajamana is not the one performing the ritual, right? It is the priest to perform, the Ritvik. The Ritvik performs the ritual. The Ritvik gets his dakshina. That is why he says dakshinascha. The Ritvik gets his dakshina, but the phalam goes only to Yajamana. And what are the phalam? Lokaha. The 14 lokas which have been created as a result of punya phalam or punya papa phalam. So loka also here means karma phalam. So it means one should know which ritual gives you which phalam. And somo yatra pavate, where the sun shines, yatra surya pavate, where the moon shines, where the sun shines. Okay. So Karma Kanda is talking about all sort of Vedic rituals. Upasana Kanda talks about all sort of Vedic upasana, Vedic meditation. And Shukla Gati and Krishna Gati. All these are referred to here. The Dakshinayanam, Uttarayanam. Remember that what we keep always saying, that earning karma is possible only in Manushya Loka. In other lokas, you can exhaust only karma. So what is, when you are saying somo yatra bhavate and surya yatra bhavate, whichever worlds, whichever objects that the sun shines on or the moon shines on, it's not mentioned in the mantra, but you have to specifically say all this from Purusha alone, they are born. So ultimately, it is trying to show you that whatever you see in this world are born from Ishvara alone. And if you connect this to the earlier discussions, what should you be? Whenever you look at any object in the world, you should be seeing only Ishvara. Sarve Brahman. Sarvam Brahman. That is what is the text of these very beautiful verses. They give you a very long description, and while studying the description, we are apt to forget what is the main purpose behind all the descriptions. Main purpose is to show you that whatever it is that you see, it is Brahman alone. So with this, I'll stop for today. If you have any questions.
Om Acharya.
Yeah.
That why is that head is represented with the fire? Is there any logic?
I
Apart from
quoted the Chandogya for you. Chandogya gives a quotation where it says that lokaha, that swarga is the Agni. Agni is the lokaha. It's a quotation.
okay.
Yeah.
If everything is Brahman, then the animal that is sacrificed for the yajna is not Brahman.
That is also Brahman, very much.
And still can be sacrificed.
Yeah, so we have to accept the fact that at some point of time, there were, animal sacrifices in Vedic culture.
Yeah.
And therefore they are there in the scripture, but we need not follow them.
Yeah.
So the large sacrifices, Ashwamedha Yajna, for example, they had animal sacrifices.
Cool.
So we can't, that is why Shankara makes a point of saying, that ahimsa is not violated. He doesn't want you to feel that ahimsa is being violated.
Mhm.
But, it is ahimsa, right? Because you are doing, Shankara's viewpoint is that you take the Bhagavad Gita, for example. If you are killing in the process of doing your duty, then ahimsa is not violated. That is more easily understandable. But here also,
Yes.
the yajna is a duty prescribed by the Veda. And therefore, while doing the yajna, Veda says that, okay, here also, just like killing on the battlefield, here also, killing does not violate the virtues. But we can always choose an alternative yajna, right? One which doesn't have, because it says you can do the same yajna without that pole.
Hmm.
So there's no need to use an animal.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so with this, we'll stop for today.
Sir, can I say something?
Yes, please.
So offhandedly, so casually, we say that all these rituals are man-made, but they're not man-made.
They're not man-made. They're all prescribed in the Veda.
Vedas.
Yes.
So they're passed down. And they were passed down and they had a literal meaning behind it always.
Everything has a literal meaning behind, because it is
But
the words of the Lord, right? It is not the words of any man.
But because of lack of knowledge, they have now become as like passed downs without any meaning to it. It's just being done ritualistically.
That is because we are not teaching our children what it really means. And
That's what I said, lack of knowledge, lack of
and
the true
lack of
knowledge.
knowledge, and when you then it becomes purely mechanical, and an intelligent child is right to reject mechanical things. He will say there's no meaning in this. So if you want him to respect the Veda, you have to teach him the Veda, and if you want to teach the Veda, you have to know the Veda.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Om Tat Sat.
Thank you, Acharya.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Acharya ji.
Acharya.
Om.